So there's this issue not just me have found, lots of people have found when it comes to science fiction and fantasy and all that stuff, but basically fiction, where you have all these impossible things happening in this fantastical or just this crazy setting where anything could happen, right? Except for apparently proper representation. Because what happens a lot of the time is that if somebody has their book series, and it could have most impossible bullshit happening in there, but if they have queer characters, oh, that's not realistic, it's not going to appeal to anyone. They're not either edit it or we're not publishing it. Even having too many POC, people of color, or having in some cases even women who aren't the typical, the kind of lead character that we've kind of turned into the leading role, but even like old-timey sci-fi, it's saying it's taking place hundreds, even thousands of years in the future, or even modern sci-fi, and it's still super patriarchal, and it's like, okay, so you're having people able to teleport and throw fire out of their hands and, transport across thousands of light years in a second, but you can't have people of color or queer people or just women being, just as strong, intelligent, powerful, etc. Like, now I'm not saying this is an absolute rule because there are tons of exceptions, but why? Like, why is that so hard for people to believe? And then there's people like, it won't appeal to anyone. Bitch, I look for queer stuff. Do you know how hard it is to find a book that's in the genre I like? Because it's always slice of life or inspiration porn or, tragedy when it comes to stuff that has queer characters in it. And it's like, no, I don't give a shit. I don't like any of those genres. The one I'll tolerate the most is slice of life, but even then I get bored of it really quick. I want horror, I want action, I want sci-fi, I want fantasy. I want like really cool shit in my stories. I don't want to read some book about someone's life that could actually happen because it's boring. I want to read, I'm escaping into another world where it's not limited to the things that happen in my world. Except it's so hard to find a book series or book at all, or movie or TV show, etc., that's in a genre I like, but also allows me to relate to the characters properly, because that's the thing, is that there are so many queer people who just can't get as in-depth with the characters, or into the book or this whatever the series, because they can't relate. Because the thing is, the whole point of fiction is that you can escape, right? And how the hell are you supposed to escape? Because the thing is that your hero has to be someone that you could see yourself as, or being similar to, so that you have to relate to the character, so that you feel for them, and so that you want them to succeed, you want to see what happens to them and everything else, as well as it provides that escapism for you because you can imagine yourself in it. But that's why so many action heroes have the generic action hero guy, which he has a really flat personality so that everyone else can project their personalities onto them. And that's also why Twilight got so popular, is because of how much of a one-dimensional shitty character Bella was, because any girl could project her personality on that because it was practically a blank slate. Problem is that when you're queer and you're constantly reminded that the character you're supposed to be relating to has nothing in common with you, it gets harder and harder to relate. And even when queer people are written into stuff, it's oftentimes they'll be like one character and they won't be the most central character, they won't even be that much of a significant character, or they'll be a fucking stereotype, and at best they'll be a supporting character, if not maybe even a villain, which is why a lot of queer people they end up identifying with the villain. But that's queer coding, because the thing is that it's teaching you that gay people are bad, subconscious. It's like subliminal messaging. That's why you always see like POC, people of color as the antagonist, or queer people as the antagonist, or antagonists having traits of these marginalized people, so that it's kind of, it's subliminally telling you that these people are bad instead of being good. That, or they'll just be completely and utterly useless, and you'll need the, your typical white, straight, whatever, cishet, whatever, protagonist to come in and save the day, or whatever. and it's really fucking frustrating because it is fucking possible to write a good series that'll get popular and that'll be beloved and that has representation, like Skulduggery Pleasant, though the queer characters you don't really find out that they are until a little later in the series, and also it's he, unfortunately, because Ireland has a lot stricter rules about this sort of thing, it's only outright said for one character once, but the author has said outside of it that like 2 characters that were both men were actually a couple, and by the way they interact you can kind of tell they do everything short of like holding hands and kissing. But anyways, just they're like an old married couple almost, and and the way they care about each other and stuff like that. And then, you know, one of the female characters who makes a comment about dating another one of the female characters in the past, and also everyone falls in love with this one character because of this charm she has on her, and men, doesn't matter. And then the Gone series, which is a fantastic series, and part of the reason why its popularity kind of got stunted is something I'll go into in a sec. It's amazing, and it got some decent popularity, and it has queer characters that they straight up say, yo, this character's a lesbian, yo, these 2 characters are dating and they're both guys, and everything else. Like, it's straight, and there are plenty of, they break all the stereotypes, and there are plenty of people of color as well, including something that a lot of people have praised it for, was that one of the main characters who's black, he's actually ends up being like the super smart businessman entrepreneur thing that ends up taking this crumbling society of children and kind of turning it around and making it so that there's some order and that they can function and they can get food harvested and everything else. So you know, there's that, and he's a kid too, and the fact that it was like a black kid that did that kind of saved the town type of thing, from not just the crazy bullshit, supernatural bullshit that was going on, but just from crumbling and people starving to death and everything else. Now, what I said about reason why part of the popularity got stunted is that, unfortunately, Stephen King decided to rip them off, because he published Under the Dome between the publication of the second and third book in the Gone series. And then as soon as I started talking about the Gone series, everyone's like, oh, like Under the Dome? And part of the reason why I'm not just like, oh, it was a coincidence, because all of his reviews are on the goddamn books, so you know he's read them, so you know that he either got the idea from it, or at the very least, like as a writer, I remember I would drop a story and then for a while or have to feel like I have to change something if it bears too many similarities to other people's work. So the fact that there was a published work which he had read and had his reviews, his name on it as having his reviews and thinking that they're really great books, and then you go and publish a book that has the same sort of concept? Are you kidding me? Now, of course, the adults were still in the domed, closed-off dystopia, but still, like, come on. But yeah, so, oh yeah, another thing about Skulduggery Pleasant has badass female characters and their protagonists and everything else without being, you know, the typical young adult female protagonist, which ends up just being a blank slate and a love interest more than anything. Another thing is just the frustration at the focus of romance. Even I can tolerate young adult novels that have next to no queer characters if they're not like constantly reminding you that these characters aren't queer and that they very much are straight by having like such romance heavy plots. Like Skulduggery Pleasant, there's like a teensy bit of romance, but it's such a subplot that you don't even fucking notice, and it doesn't even show up until like the 4th book. So yeah, and it's treated with such light and unimportance, like it has nothing to do with the plot. You could take the romantic thing out of the book and you wouldn't lose really, you wouldn't affect the plot or anything at all. So I think that's really good. It just affects, you know, the characterization, if anything. And also, Skulduggery Pleasant books actually legit make fun of, in the books, frickin' Edward Cullen. They have a character who's basically Edward Cullen, and he falls for the main protagonist, and he's like acting exactly the way Edward Cullen does to Bella, except the main protagonist is like, you know, fuck off. I'm in love with me. I'm in love with you. You're my world. It's like, okay, but what do you actually know about me? Like, And it's awesome. Everyone should read that series. I promise you won't regret it, because it's like action, horror, fantasy, and like magic working with technology. And one of the two main characters is a fucking skeleton who throws fireballs, and it's just hilarious too, because all the characters are so sassy, so sarcastic, and just plain witty. And it's hilarious, but also like can be creepy, and it's action packed, and it won Irish Book of the Decade. So there's that. Oh yeah, and they're all Irish. Well, not all Irish, but it takes place in Ireland and shit. So yeah, read the book series. Gone series is another really good one too. I recommend it. But yeah, those are the only ones that are really coming to mind in terms of things targeted. Because the thing is too is, well, if you don't like young adult stuff, why don't you go the adult stuff? Because aren't you 22? I read young adult fiction because honestly it is a lot better than adult fiction, because actually, do you know what? 60% of young adult readers aren't young adults, they're adults. And young adult fiction has less focus on trying to put as many adult themes. Every single adult themed book has had freaking sex scenes all up the yin-yang, even ones that like, okay, are you accidental? No, I've got them from the fucking horror section, but they gotta allude to sex or fucking boners or something at some point, and it drives me nuts. I'm like, I don't care. I really don't. Move on with the story. Stop describing that shit. I don't want to know. And it's like, no, stop. So first of all, young adult sex, young adult books isn't loaded with sex, and also it's just the characters. It's more focused on the characters and the story. It's more focused on like the story and the fantastical themes and the adventure and everything else than like boring or gross adult stuff. And it's just overall more enjoyable, which is why you have far more successful franchises even turning into books or into movies and stuff from young adult books than you do from adult books. So there's that. Anyways, I'll put down the names of the books as well as the order they're in, because for some reason young adult books, I don't know if it's just young adult books because that's all I really read, have stopped putting the numbers of the order of the books on the frickin' books. Like, I want to know what order to read this in, and if you're just telling me the titles of these books, I don't fucking know. Like, should I read this one first or that one first? So I'll put them also in the order that they're in case, so you have a quick reference point. And this video is way longer than I intended as usual, so thanks for watching and happy reading.